Hi everybody, thanks for joining me for part two. And for part two, what I really want to do is kind of get into the idea of fair use. So we're going to explore the final two questions and what is meant by fair use, kind of related to classroom use, and then what are the four criteria. And so I think by starting there, I think that you'll have a good foundation for how we're thinking about copyright, especially in 201, and then as you move forward, okay? So, one of the things that we have to be very, very careful about is that, and I even hear this from our pre-service teachers and from in-service teachers that I work with and stuff, and it's almost like teachers cry this idea of fair use. I'm in education, that means I can use anything I want because of the fair use law. And the federal law is kind of entitled fair use. Within that law, though, there's a couple of quotes that or this quote that I have teased out here. And it basically states that you can use materials for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research, and that is not an infringement of copyright, okay? And so when we hear that, it's like, oh, okay, it says teaching, I can use it. But what they fail to do is keep going and then understanding what is meant by the concept of fair use. And so, again, as I say in the second bullet, fair use is often used as an excuse for just copying rather than a well thought out reason for why we copied, okay? And, you know, teachers, these are some of the excuses that I've heard, and I've said them myself, okay? I've actually said them myself. Any use so long as it's done in school. Benefits the kids, it's okay. I'm doing it for my students. We're not making any money on it. If we're not making any money on it, it should be okay. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of couch us in that conversation and try to maybe steer us in a little bit more, in a course that's a little bit more ethical than just kind of crying that fair use, okay? So to start with that, I think what we have to do is we have to think about the four criteria of fair use, okay? And this is the part that everybody kind of forgets to read. And you guys, for fair use, you are supposed to see how, when you want to use something, I want to use a digital image, I want to use a video, I want to use a text, a paper, a book, okay? What you have to do is in your head, you have to tick through the four criteria of fair use and decide where you land on those four, and then make an educated decision on if you can use it. Now, you might be saying, well, I can't do that. I can't do those four every time I want to use something. You know, I think it just becomes natural. If you get a good grounding in understanding the four criteria, then I think as you move forward, it will work for you. Okay, so bear with me and as we kind of go through and think about these. So, the first one is the purpose and character of use. Okay, now this one is typically very easy for us to comply with. The purpose and character of use means if it is being used, whatever you want to use is being used for an educational purpose, it's basically you can check yes for this criteria. Okay, so as long as it is impacting your instructional curriculum, what you're teaching, what you're doing, you can use it. Okay, so that's kind of an easy one, and I think that's the one, like everybody stops here. They forget about 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now if it's commercial use, or if you're using it for commercial use, or research probably would fall under there, but usually they teeter this one between commercial or educational, okay? And again, we're usually good with educational, okay? 2, nature of the copyrighted work. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit dicey in terms of understanding what is meant by nature of the copyrighted work. And again, hopefully your reading can help with this a little bit. But with the nature of the copyright, how I like to explain this, you guys, is we have this continuum, okay? And on one side of the continuum is it's very factual. The facts have been around for a long time. It's not, there's no other way of explaining that information. It's just very concrete and it doesn't change, okay? On the other side of the continuum is what I would word as creativity, okay, or creative. And it's highly creative. It's, not everybody can do it, kind of a thing. The easiest way to kind of do with creativity is like an artist, author. You think about people who draw, who write, who take pictures. Those are their things. And so the more creative something is, the more it's like you can't use it, okay? So like if I had something here that was highly creative, my answer to this fair use criteria would be no, okay? If it's more on the factual side, like maybe a quote from the Declaration of Independence or a biography of George Washington or some, again, those you still have to be careful about them, but more the facts kinds of things, then it would probably be more okay to use, okay? Now, you still have to cite. Just because it's fair use, you still have to cite what you use, but it would be okay to use, okay? So that one I know is a little wishy-washy, but it's the best that I can, again, if you read about it a little bit and just read about the nature of copyrighted work and what it means, you might be able to get some more examples with that. The third one, this one is very important, the amount to be copied in relation to the work as a whole. Okay, so what fair use is really about is the amount of information that you can copy. And you guys, the closer you are to copying the whole thing, the whole text, the whole picture, the whole whatever, okay, then it's more on that no, because there are amounts that you deal with. Now, you guys, those we're going to talk about those next week in class. What are the amounts for different kinds of media and so forth? But just for your knowledge right now and to start thinking about it is usually if you're just using a part of something, you're probably going to be okay. So the answer to this would be yes. If you're going to use the whole of something, if you're going to use a whole chapter of text, if you're going to use a whole children's literature book and copy it, scan it or something, then you're probably breaking copyright for, obvious reasons. Okay, so then the answer would be no. Okay, so again, I'm kind of taking you through these criteria to think about, and again, you're answering all the criteria, not just the first one. Is it for educational use? Okay, you're going through them all. The last one, again, I think this one is kind of simple again. The effect upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Okay, so usually in education, when we have kids make projects, especially with technology and things, they're making them for us, and we're not selling them, okay? We're not making money on them in any way. Hence, the commercial gain for people that maybe we borrowed their work to use in our projects and so forth. we're not making money on them, and they're not losing money as a result, okay? Because people are getting it through us and not getting it through them, okay? I know it's a little bit hard to follow sometimes, but usually we don't impact a market, okay, of things being sold and so forth in education. But if you think back to some of your fundraisers and those kinds of things that you've done and maybe made things for, that can get dicey there too. So it still is a criteria that we have to evaluate when we're using it, okay? So with that, you guys, these are the 4 criteria for fair use, okay? And so these, I rarely have you or tell you, you guys memorize this, because with technology, it's just kind of this ebb and flow. But you guys, with these 4, right now, start memorizing them. Maybe not word for word, but know what they mean, okay? The purpose and character, the nature of the work, the amount that you're copying, and the potential upon like a market, a commercial market, on how you use it. And then as we gather resources for use in our classroom, you guys, that's what we ask. We ask ourselves, okay, can I use this? Can I use this? Well, check, 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 check. How do the yeses and nos line up for using that, okay? And that's what we'll continue to explore together, okay? So that's kind of the information that I wanted to give you for today, okay? There's one more video, and that's kind of a video on setting the stage for what I'm calling your exit ticket. So once you get to that part and get that finished, you'll be completed. So I hope that you've learned something new about fair use and how it impacts you as a future educator. Thanks a lot.